Here's what no one tells you about the female mind. The most powerful trigger for obsession isn't physical attraction, expensive gifts, or even emotional support. It's intellectual validation combined with emotional mystery, a psychological mechanism that Machiavelli understood centuries before neuroscience proved him right. When you activate what researchers now call the cognitive emotional nexus in a woman's brain, you don't just capture her attention. You become the person she thinks about when she's supposed to be thinking about everything else. Most people chase surface level attraction while completely missing the deeper psychological triggers that create genuine fascination and lasting connection. You've been taught that women want security, romance, or confidence, but these are just the visible layers of a much more complex psychological landscape. The real secret lies in understanding how the female brain processes intellectual stimulation combined with emotional unpredictability. When Machiavelli wrote about the art of influence, he wasn't just talking about political power. He identified a fundamental truth about human psychology that modern neuroscience has now validated through decades of research. The female brain contains what neuroscientists call mirror neurons that constantly seek patterns, meaning, and intellectual challenges. But here's where it gets fascinating. These same neural pathways that process intellectual engagement are intimately connected to the brain's reward and attachment systems. When you combine intellectual stimulation with controlled emotional variability, you create a neurochemical cascade that's more powerful than any physical attraction. If this perspective fascinates you, join us by subscribing so you don't miss the deeper psychological truths we explore here. The mistake most people make is thinking that being predictable equals being safe, and that safety equals attraction. But psychological research reveals the opposite. The female mind craves intellectual challenge combined with emotional mystery. Doctor, Helen Fisher's neuroimaging studies show that uncertainty and intellectual engagement activate the same brain regions associated with addiction and obsession. When someone can stimulate your mind while keeping you slightly off balance emotionally, your brain interprets this as a puzzle worth solving, a mystery worth unraveling. Think about the people who have captivated you most deeply in your life. They weren't the ones who were completely available and predictable. They were the ones who could engage your intellect, challenge your assumptions, and maintain an element of emotional mystery that kept you wondering. This isn't manipulation. It's understanding how the human brain naturally processes fascination and creates lasting neural pathways of interest. The mental G-spot isn't a metaphor. It's a real neurological phenomenon. When specific intellectual and emotional triggers are activated simultaneously, the brain releases a cocktail of dopamine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin that creates what researchers call intrusive thinking, the inability to stop thinking about someone. But here's the crucial distinction. This can happen through authentic intellectual connection and genuine emotional depth, not through manipulation or games. Machiavelli understood that true influence comes from becoming indispensable to someone's thought processes. But modern psychology reveals how to achieve this ethically by developing genuine intellectual curiosity, emotional intelligence, and the confidence to maintain your own mystery while deeply understanding others. The key isn't to create artificial scarcity or emotional manipulation, but to become someone whose mind is so fascinating that others naturally want to explore it further. The female brain processes emotional information differently than the male brain, with stronger connections between the emotional and verbal processing centers. This means that intellectual conversations carry deeper emotional weight for women. When you can engage both her analytical mind and her emotional centers simultaneously, you create what neuroscientists call dual pathway activation, a state where logical thinking and emotional feeling become intertwined and mutually reinforcing. But here's where most people go wrong. They think this means being an intellectual show-off or emotional manipulator. The reality is much subtler. It means developing genuine depth, authentic curiosity about her thoughts and perspectives, and the emotional intelligence to create conversations that feel both intellectually stimulating and emotionally safe. It's about becoming someone who can hold complex, nuanced discussions while maintaining emotional presence and availability. The obsession component comes from a psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains are hardwired to keep thinking about unfinished business, unsolved puzzles, and incomplete patterns. When you can engage someone intellectually while maintaining emotional complexity, you become an ongoing puzzle their mind wants to solve. But again, this should happen naturally through genuine depth and authenticity, not through calculated emotional withholding. Research by Dr. Arthur Aaron shows that couples who engage in novel, challenging activities together experience increased attraction and bonding. The same principle applies to intellectual engagement. When you consistently bring new perspectives, challenging questions, and thought-provoking insights to conversations, you become associated with growth, discovery, and mental stimulation. Your presence becomes synonymous with intellectual adventure. The emotional mystery component isn't about being emotionally unavailable or playing games. It's about maintaining your own inner life, your own goals and passions, and not becoming completely transparent and predictable. Healthy mystery means having depths that are gradually revealed over time, rather than dumping all your emotional content immediately or becoming an open book with no pages left unread. Share in the comments if you've experienced this dynamic before, that magnetic pull towards someone who could stimulate your mind while keeping you emotionally engaged. The combination of intellectual challenge and emotional presence creates a psychological state that's genuinely addictive in the best possible way. Attachment theory reveals why this works so powerfully. We're wired from childhood to seek secure-based behaviors, someone who can be both a safe haven and a source of exploration and discovery. When someone embodies both intellectual stimulation and emotional reliability, they become what psychologists call a secure base for exploration and growth. This creates deep psychological attachment that goes far beyond surface-level attraction. The neuroscience behind this is remarkable. When intellectual engagement occurs in the presence of positive emotions, the brain literally rewires itself to associate that person with growth, discovery, and positive challenge. Mirror neurons fire not just when we observe someone's actions, but when we anticipate their thoughts and responses. If someone consistently brings unexpected insights and perspectives, our brains become conditioned to seek that intellectual stimulation. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most dating advice ignores. This level of connection requires genuine intellectual development on your part. You can't fake depth, curiosity, or emotional intelligence. The people who become truly fascinating to others are those who have invested in becoming fascinating to themselves first. They read widely, think deeply, question assumptions, and maintain genuine curiosity about life and people. The emotional component works through what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, not the toxic kind created through manipulation, but the natural kind that occurs when someone is emotionally present but maintains their own autonomy and mystery. This means being fully engaged when you're together while maintaining your own life, goals, and inner world when you're apart. Dr. Sue Johnson's research on attachment and bonding shows that the strongest connections form when people experience both emotional safety and emotional growth together. The mental G-spot is really the intersection of intellectual challenge and emotional attunement, being able to stimulate someone's mind while making them feel truly seen and understood at a deeper level. The obsession isn't unhealthy when it's based on genuine connection and mutual growth. It's the natural result of finding someone who can consistently offer new perspectives while maintaining emotional presence and authenticity. Your brain literally becomes addicted to the growth and discovery that person represents in your life. This is why surface-level strategies fail. Trying to create artificial mystery or intellectual posturing backfires because it's not authentic. The female brain, with its sophisticated emotional processing capabilities, can detect inauthenticity quickly. What creates lasting fascination is genuine depth, actually being someone worth thinking about because of who you've become, not because of games you're playing. The key insight from Machiavelli wasn't about manipulation. It was about understanding that influence comes from becoming indispensable to someone's growth and self-discovery. When you can consistently help someone see themselves and the world in new ways, when conversations with you lead to insights and revelations they can't get elsewhere, you become psychologically valuable in a way that creates natural, healthy obsession. Modern neuroscience reveals that this process literally changes brain structure. When someone consistently experiences intellectual and emotional growth in your presence, Their neural pathways begin associating you with positive change and self-expansion. This creates what psychologists call self-expansion through relationship, a deeply addictive psychological state where being with someone makes you feel like you're becoming a better version of yourself. The female mind craves this combination of intellectual stimulation and emotional depth because it satisfies multiple psychological needs simultaneously: the need for growth, the need for understanding, the need for challenge, and the need for emotional connection. When someone can provide all of these elements authentically, they become irreplaceable in ways that go far beyond physical attraction or surface level compatibility. But remember, understanding these mechanisms doesn't mean exploiting them. The goal isn't to manipulate someone into obsession, but to understand what creates genuine, healthy fascination, so you can develop these qualities authentically. The most powerful version of this dynamic occurs when both people are growing and discovering through their connection, when the intellectual and emotional stimulation flows both directions. The transformation happens when you realize that becoming irresistibly fascinating isn't about learning techniques or strategies. It's about becoming genuinely fascinating through continuous learning, emotional development, and authentic depth. When you embody intellectual curiosity, emotional intelligence, and maintain healthy autonomy while being genuinely interested in others, you naturally activate these psychological mechanisms without manipulation or games. Like this video if this revelation changes how you see attraction and connection, because understanding these deeper mechanisms can transform how you approach relationships and personal development. The ultimate secret Machiavelli understood is that true power comes not from controlling others, but from becoming someone others naturally want to understand more deeply. When you develop genuine intellectual depth, emotional intelligence, and maintain your own mystery through continuous growth and self-discovery, you become the kind of person who naturally occupies others' thoughts, not because you've manipulated them into it, but because you've become genuinely worth thinking about. This knowledge is a tool for self-development and understanding, not for manipulation. Use it to become someone who creates authentic fascination through depth, growth, and genuine connection. The female mind responds to authenticity combined with complexity, to emotional presence combined with intellectual challenge, to understanding combined with mystery. When you embody these qualities naturally, you don't need to chase obsession. It becomes the natural byproduct of who you've chosen to become. The real magic happens when you stop trying to activate triggers in others and start activating the most fascinating version of yourself. That's when true, healthy, mutual obsession begins. The kind that leads to deep connection, mutual growth, and the kind of relationship where both people become better versions of themselves through their connection with each other.